There are people who survive by turning others into fuel. This is about them, and it's about you. You don't see it. You believe you're in love. You believe you're helping. You believe you're special. You're not. You're being used and you're addicted to it. That's the truth most people live their entire lives avoiding. It didn't start this way. You thought you were connecting. They made you feel important, needed, chosen. You told yourself, this feels real. It wasn't. It was rehearsed. Because some people don't build relationships, they build leverage. They're not interested in who you are. They're interested in what you give up to keep them around. Time, certainty, identity, that's the currency. And you paid. The making of a manipulator. They weren't born empty, they were made empty. Picture a child who learned that love comes with conditions. Mommy only smiles when I'm perfect. Daddy only pays attention when I perform. Their parents turned affection into a transaction, doling out approval like currency. They watched their siblings get the warmth they craved, learning that authenticity was dangerous but performance was rewarded. Maybe it was the mother who said, "You're so much better than your sister when you try," teaching them that worth was comparative, conditional. Or the father who disappeared emotionally whenever vulnerability appeared, training them that real feelings were punishments. Perhaps it was the parent who played favorites, switching loyalties like seasons until the child learned that survival meant reading the room and becoming whatever the room needed. So they learned to shapeshift. They studied faces like maps, voices like weather patterns. They became emotional chameleons because their childhood was a masterclass in psychological survival. Being real got them hurt. Being perfect got them noticed. Being what others needed got them fed. So they stopped being themselves and started being strategic. They don't love you, they script you. And you became the character just to survive. Why you missed the red flags. You missed the warning signs because they weren't red. They were beige, subtle, psychologically surgical. They compliment you, but always with a twist. That's an ambitious goal. Are you sure that's your style? Not many people can pull that off. Sounds supportive, right? It's not. It's evaluation, a gentle erosion of your confidence disguised as care. But here's the deeper truth. You ignored the red flags because your nervous system was primed to ignore them. Maybe you grew up in a house where love was inconsistent, where you had to earn affection through performance. Your inner child learned that relationships require sacrifice, that your needs are secondary, that being too much means being abandoned. So when they mirrored your voice, tempo, body language to trigger comfort, your attachment system said home. When they overshared something dark too early, your trauma-bonded brain called it intimacy instead of manipulation. When they went cold right after you succeeded, your abandonment wounds whispered, "You're not worthy of happiness." Picture this. You're excited about a work presentation, finally feeling proud of yourself. That evening, they suddenly bring up how you never listen and start a fight that leaves you drained and doubting yourself. The next day, you're distracted, stumbling through your presentation. At the office, your colleague Sarah notices your distraction and asks, "Everything okay?" You seem off. You force a smile. Just tired. Because how do you explain that your partner has a supernatural ability to sabotage your success? Or consider the family dinner where you're finally setting a boundary with your controlling mother. Your partner, who seemed supportive at home, suddenly sides with her in public. "You know how you can be," they say with a knowing look. Your mother smiles triumphantly. You feel betrayed, but later they gaslight you. "I was just trying to keep the peace. You're so sensitive." Coincidence? Never. You assumed it was random timing. It was calculated sabotage. The interior monologue of self-abandonment. Here's what you felt but never said. Something's wrong, but I can't name it. I feel crazy, but they seem so reasonable. Why do I feel like I'm walking on eggshells in my own life? Why am I explaining myself so much? When did I become so uncertain about everything? I used to be confident. I used to have opinions. Now I second-guess everything I say, everything I feel. I'm becoming someone I don't recognize, but they say I'm growing and learning to compromise. Is this what healthy relationships feel like? This constant tension in my chest? I can't talk to my friends about this because they wouldn't understand. Besides, what would I even say? That my partner is too supportive? That they care too much? That their concern feels like surveillance? You saw it, but you rationalized. He's just tired. She's been through a lot. They didn't mean it. Let me be clear. You trained yourself to ignore yourself. Your gut screamed, but you needed the story more than the truth. So you made micro-adjustments. You softened your tone, filtered your thoughts, hid your needs, until you didn't recognize yourself, but they were thriving. You think they changed? No, you did, to survive something that was never safe to begin with. The archetypal dance. You were Persephone and they were Hades, charming at first, then dragging you into an underworld where their rules became your reality. You thought you were choosing love, you were choosing captivity. You became Prometheus, stealing fire for someone who would never appreciate the sacrifice, burning yourself to keep them warm while they blamed you for the ashes. Here's the brutal truth. You didn't stay because you were trapped. You stayed because part of you needed the story to be true, that you were helping, that you were special, that your patience would pay off. You convinced yourself they're just misunderstood. You told your friends it's complicated. You told your therapist, I think I just love too hard. You abandon yourself too easily, and they know it, because people like that don't pick strong boundaries, they pick predictable sacrifices. The inevitable collapse. It always comes, the collapse. They withdraw, go silent, start looking at you like a chore. You ask what's wrong. They say nothing. You ask again. They say you're overthinking. You press one more time. They say you're exhausting. What they mean is you're not as easy to use anymore. So you panic, try harder, start explaining, performing. You become a court jester, desperately trying to win back the king's favor. And now you're back where they want you. Off balance, uncertain, grateful for scraps of attention. I don't understand what I did wrong. Last week they said I was amazing and now I'm too much. I'm walking on eggshells, but I don't know where the shells are. I'm becoming someone I hate, needy, anxious, constantly seeking approval. This isn't me. But if I stop trying, will they leave? And if they leave, who am I without them? Because once you're confused, they don't have to be clear. The theater of masks. They don't just have one face, they rotate them like a theatrical wardrobe depending on what works on you. Each mask is a character in their one-person show, and you're the audience, unknowingly applauding your own manipulation. The victim. My ex ruined me. You're the only one who understands. I'm scared you'll leave too. This mask makes you feel special, chosen, needed. You become their savior, their soft place to land. But victims don't take responsibility, and you'll find yourself walking on eggshells, afraid to upset their fragile peace. The charmer. I've never felt this way before. You're so different, you just get me. This mask makes you feel seen, understood, unique. Love bombing disguised as connection. But charmers perform love rather than feel it, and once you're hooked, the performance becomes optional. The savior. Let me fix this for you. You'd fall apart without me. You need me more than you know. This mask makes you feel cared for, protected, important. But saviors create the problems they solve, and you'll find yourself increasingly dependent, your competence mysteriously eroding. The Punisher. You're too emotional. Stop being dramatic, followed by cold silence. This mask makes you feel wrong, bad, confused. You'll start policing your own emotions, shrinking your needs, becoming a ghost of yourself to avoid triggering their disapproval. The phantom vanishes, reappears, says just enough to keep you hoping. This mask makes you feel anxious, grateful, addicted to their attention. You'll find yourself waiting for their texts, overanalyzing their silences, living in a constant state of anticipation. These aren't personalities, they're tactics, scripts in their emotional theater, and you're the unwitting audience member who doesn't realize they're also the stage. You know this is about you, and that terrifies you. The awakening sequence. Here's what waking up feels like in stages. First, the glitch. Something they say doesn't add up. A story changes, you catch them in a small lie, and suddenly you're questioning everything. Wait, didn't they say their ex was abusive? But now they're having coffee with them? And why are they being so defensive when I ask about it? Then, the pattern recognition. You start seeing the cycles. The love bombing followed by withdrawal. The way they pick fights before your important events. The way your successes seem to trigger their need for attention. Oh God, they did this before my job interview too. And before my sister's wedding. This isn't coincidence. The body remembers. Your nervous system starts rejecting what your mind has normalized. Your chest tightens when you hear their key in the door. Your stomach churns when they text. Your hands shake when you prepare to have a conversation. My body is trying to tell me something. Why am I so anxious around the person I love? The inventory. You start remembering who you were before them. Your friends, your hobbies, your confidence, your voice. I used to paint. I used to laugh easily. I used to have opinions. When did I become so small? The clarity. You stop justifying and start remembering. The tension in your chest, that was your gut the whole time. The fear before you speak, that was your real voice being strangled. You don't feel crazy. You feel angry. Not because they lied, but because you ignored what was obvious. The rebellion. Small acts of resistance. You don't immediately respond to their text. You make plans without asking permission. You say no to something they want. Each act feels like revolution, like reclaiming stolen territory. You weren't blind. You were loyal to a fantasy. And now, it's over. The fallout. They won't applaud your clarity. They'll accuse you of changing. You're not the same. You used to care. You've got an attitude now. Translation, you stopped playing your part, and that makes you dangerous. They'll threaten to leave. Let them. They'll call you selfish. Wear it proudly. They'll say, you've changed. Say thank you. They'll try to hoover you back with promises of change, memories of good times, threats of loneliness. They'll cycle through every mask they own, hoping one will stick. But you've seen behind the curtain now. You know these are characters, not personality. You know this is performance, not love. Because walking away from psychological servitude isn't selfish. It's survival. The pattern unveiled. This wasn't about love. It was about patterns. Old childhood wounds, unconscious deals, neediness mistaken for loyalty. You weren't the only one who played a role, but you're the only one who can break the cycle. You don't need closure. You need boundaries. You don't need revenge. You need to stop needing their validation. You don't need to understand them. You need to understand yourself. Because they were never confused. They were committed to the role they play in every relationship. They're still playing it with someone new, someone who hasn't learned to see through the script yet. And unless you change your part, you'll meet the same actor in a different costume, in a different theater, playing the same manipulative show. The truth that sets you free. You weren't chosen. You were useful until you weren't. That's the part you didn't want to believe, but now that you do, it's power. The moment you stop performing, you become dangerous to the people who lived off your silence. You weren't too much. You were too awake. They never loved you. They fed on your need to be needed. But here's the deeper truth. You handed them the script. You auditioned for the role of victim, rescuer, supply. You stayed on their stage because leaving meant admitting you'd been performing instead of living. The shame isn't in being fooled. It's in fooling yourself afterward. The ritual of reclamation. This time you're done playing a role. This time the script burns. Here's how you take your power back. Delete the last message you rewrote 5 times just to be tolerated. Don't send the explanation, the apology, the plea. Let the silence speak. That's your power coming back online. Block their number, not to punish them, but to protect yourself. Your healing is more important than their access to you. Every time you're tempted to unblock them, remember, they're not trying to reach you, they're trying to reach their supply. Reclaim your space. Remove their photos, their gifts, their energy from your environment. Not out of spite, but out of self-respect. You're creating a shrine to yourself, not a museum of your exploitation. Write your truth, unfiltered. Not to send to them, but to remember for yourself. Write about the red flags you ignored, the excuses you made, the person you became. This isn't about blame. It's about recognition. You're creating evidence for future you, a warning system for your heart. Sit with the silence. Don't rush to fill the void with someone new, something distracting, some way to avoid feeling the absence. The silence isn't empty. It's full of your reclaimed energy, your recovered voice, your returning self. This is your power coming back online. This is you, remembering who you are without their script. This is you, choosing yourself over the performance. You are not their fuel anymore. You are your own fire. The theater is empty, the masks are off, the script is burned. Now what will you create with your authentic voice?